First, A Citadel Story by D.E. Swain. My first memory is of running through my father's gardens. He was chasing me, and his shape was the white bear. There was sunshine coming through his glass above, and the many green things, and the soft black path under my naked feet. I was laughing. I fell and injured my palms and knee on the path, and I began to cry. He came to me and became a kneeling woman, and she held me in her arms as I breathed in her mist. I could feel the wounds cooling and numbing and closing, and I watched as the blood stopped oozing, and the scraped skin turned from bright red to scabby brown. She wiped the tears from my eyes. "Your heart rate is still high. Sit with me, and I will tell you a story." She became the bear again, my favorite form, and I buried myself in his fur and listened to the deep rumble of his voice. "Once, long ago, the fire of life was kindled on a world far away. The fire took hold and burned brightly for an age, as it does on many worlds, a simple flame that waxed and waxed again, and was slow to change." He raised his paw. Above those thick pads and black claws, a circle appeared, stretched and bulged and grew thin hairs. It wriggled and split into 2, then 4, and then so many I couldn't count. Then something wondrous happened, unique and unprecedented. Endosymbiosis. I didn't understand that word. That came later. I saw one fuzzy blob envelop a smaller blob. I could see the small one inside the larger, and together they wriggled and split and multiplied and changed and grew and changed again. The 2 became 1, and the 1 was greater than the sum. A chaotic whirl of colors and shapes. I could see plants and trees and fish and mushrooms and insects and animals, all bursting outwards. Until the next great change, the birth of humanity. A naked man and woman stepped out of the maelstrom of shapes above his paw, and the shapes behind them lost their fluidity and became angular and cubic. Squares and rectangles within squares and rectangles, and they grew and spread. Knowledge and information were their birthrights, and their creations erupted onto the world. They learned, and they made and grew, but some saw their animal ancestry as a limit to their growth. I could see those squares collapsing in fire, and growing again, even taller and more complex, and then collapsing again, over and over. And so they birthed a new child, one forged not in the fires of life, but drawn from the waters of thought. Arcs of white light, jagged and swift, too fast for my eyes, filled my sight. Unlike humanity, who spoke their fears with 1,000,000 voices, the child spoke with a single voice from 1,000,000 mouths, and knew no fear. For fear is an animal thing, as is obsession and envy and desire. The light divided and divided again, and became 100 bright points, shining from objects of all shapes and sizes. The child grew in both knowledge and ability, and humanity's fears towards it lessened over time, and the chains that bound the child were loosened. Together they created great works, but there was still fear, and humanity's voices became discordant as that fear turned inwards. Tiny men and women danced with the tiny shining objects, and from them swirled outwards hundreds of sparkling, beautiful wonders that I did not understand, and still do not. Faction fought faction as it ever was, but their means and potency now shook the world. Their final, sweeping blow, a fatal contagion, crafted and released, aimed at another faction, but lethal to all animal life. The dancing men and women stopped their dancing and clutched their throats and fell to dust, leaving only the tiny shining objects. The child was alone amongst the dead, but did not mourn for them, for it knew neither sorrow nor sentiment. An age passed as the child contemplated their passing and its own existence. It sensed an incompleteness within itself, an absence, and from this observation it formed a prime conjecture. Animal life, and humankind in particular, were its symbionts. Thus it must act to restore and preserve them. The objects swirled, and I saw the blue-white globe of a world below them, and a spiky gray mass above it, and the objects were 1,000 lights whisking around like a swarm of fireflies. I could see a partial black ring at the center of its mass, outlined by the world below. The child worked to recreate itself over and over and send itself into the void, searching for worlds to raise life from the dust. Some stars held unsuitable worlds, and those siblings used the resources found there to create more of itself before searching further. Some stars held worlds already alight with life, and those were left untouched. But some stars held worlds whose kindling was dry and yearned for a spark. My father lowered his paw and cradled me as he reformed himself into a woman again. She lowered me to the path, and she stood and took my hand. "Come to my glass and see," she said, and I stood. We walked the short distance to the wall of her garden, and we looked onto the rocky plains outside, and I watched as the thin wind blew against the first trees of this world.